Yeah, so it's like I sent you pictures of that. It looked like a fifth
Yeah.
freaking toe in the back.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just like this
Can I
guy's
cut
either
this
got five
off?
toes. Yeah, it's like, should I take this? Because it looks like a freaking toe. What is going on, everybody? Tyson here with the Tackbox Podcast, alongside my co-host, my friend, my brother Dale Martinson over here. How you doing today, Dale?
I'm good, Tyson. What's the temperature in South Dakota?
Dude, we've been going back and forth about this for the last 4 days because we had really cold and snow and we froze, and he was like, we got, how you're from South Dakota, you know how everybody does this. It's like, oh my gosh, freeze warning! Everybody got to run outside and unhook their hoses tonight so they don't freeze.
Get the
yeah, we
little
had that.
styrofoam things over their faucets, and all that.
So we had that Friday night, and then this weekend was like 30s, and we got snow, and it actually stuck around for a little bit, and it was stupid. But we're back up into like 60 today, so
Nice.
it's just like we got here's the little like we're gonna
Warning
open
shot.
the door to winter, but then it's like we'll let you have a couple nice days again. So they're
We're
like that
gonna
just
lull
pushes
you into a
everybody
full
to.
sense of security.
Yeah, if it forces everybody to like, hey, we should probably go rake our leaves and actually do something now, and be prepared.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
how is it? Like you didn't have to wear gloves running today.
No. I mean, we thought it was going to be cold, but tragically, that was
Like you had a
averted.
freeze warning, right?
We had a freeze warning. I actually turned on the electric blanket for Samson.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, which of course then he did like.
It's not the blue one, is it?
No. That
Okay.
one's being used. But
yeah, he might not know the difference. He might.
He wouldn't care.
Like, hey,
He's all right. Yeah, he actually got a brand new one, so he's like rocking on.
Dude,
Samson's
he's living his best life right now.
Yeah, it's a good gig if you can be Samson. If you get people to put up with your shit.
That's how to do it. Yeah. It's like just have the big fluffy coat. Yeah, it probably feels really good for him. He probably doesn't even need the heated blanket. His coat is
probably not. Probably not. Yeah, because the hair is just like you watch it; it gets bigger by the minute. Yeah.
Yeah. So last week we talked about the surprise whelp. The puppies come in.
Right.
Well,
I've got to go. I've got a puppy being born. Yeah.
I got a puppy being born, and now I guess today they're 10 days old, doing good.
Awesome.
So
Mom's doing
super
good.
Awesome. She was spazzy for 3-4 days, but now she's like she's turned into a mom. She's still a little spazzy where I can't figure out what the hell she wants sometimes, but she's a good mom. She's got milk. She's eating. She's pooping.
Nice.
She hears the puppies cry. She runs in there. So now we just start looking for like eyes opening and a little bit more mobile and go from there. Make sure everybody's doing good.
You got those big mega dew claws knocked off?
So I sent you pictures of that. It looked like a fifth freaking toe in the back.
Yeah.
It's like this
Can
guy's
I cut this off?
Yeah, it's like, should I take this? Because it looks like a freaking toe. Yeah, and I got it out. It's still got a little nubby there at this point. I don't know. Maybe it'll heal up right, or maybe it'll just be a little nubby forever. But the claw's out, so that's good. And they only bled a couple quarts, no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you just
it's so easy.
Powder on it, some stop blood and blood stop stuff, and
fun fact: don't ever use that quick stop blood stop on yourself. Don't do it.
Does it burn?
It not so bad burns, but you'll get a terrible infection. And I don't know if it's just because of I did that one time. I got cut in my hand, and I was like, well, oh hey, just pop. Oh my God, I got so infected. Don't do that.
Interesting.
I don't know if mine just
yeah, the dogs. I asked if it burned because it's like when I take dew claws and if I get one that I can't stop bleeding and I use it, it's like as soon as it touches the puppies, they whine a little bit, and I don't know if it's just something's on there or if it stings a little bit. I don't know. So I just imagine it's like it probably stings a little bit.
Probably. It didn't. I didn't really feel like it stung it and stuff, and it did stop the bleeding. But I also got a whale of a nice infection from it too. So I don't think I wouldn't give that a 2 thumbs up review. That's probably not great.
Yeah. No. So before we started recording, we were talking about you're judging assignments and you're showing assignments, and it sounds like you're going to try to go show in December,
Yay.
which would be awesome. It's like you haven't been around for showing for a while, it seems like, but
No, I've not had an opportunity to go show, and I miss it. I want to
yeah,
go show a dog.
that shit's addicting.
Yes,
But
it's like, I got some of my dogs have been to shows, which is nice, but I mean, but it's not the same as getting to go do it yourself.
for sure. And so part of that, part of when we're looking at like the show ring and dogs and you're practicing with them, you're looking at their front end, right? Like that's a huge structural piece of any dog, and that's what we want to talk about today is the front end. And then maybe, like anytime I say front end and like, oh, we're going to talk about front end, it's just like my brain automatically goes to like, but then we have to talk about the rear end. So next week we need to talk about asses or something. I don't know.
Well, we're going to stay to the front of the topic here. I think that one thing that people maybe have a little bit of a disassociated thing is, what is the front end? Is it the pasterns and the feet? Is that the front end? Because you say, oh, look at that dog, it has a bad front, and you'll look at it and go, but it's got stick straight, real little front legs and beautiful feet. And you go, it's got a bad front. And people will look at it and go, well, it looks good here. Well, in all honesty, the front end on most breeds. Now there are some, this is a little bit of a generic statement, but it applies to a lot of different breeds of dogs, where the front end is the elbows into the ribs. It is the upper arm and the point of shoulders, making the 45-degree angle that allows them to take a step. So when we're talking about front end, so we're talking about how many steps does it take for a dog to go from point A to point B, kind of like a runner's stride. If you have an amazing big stride, you're covering more ground, just statistically speaking. And I think that's the one thing that we kind of tend to see. So which of your dogs have you noticed good front ends on?
Well, I mean, I when I think of front end, I think of a lot of different aspects of the front. I look at the reach. Like that's one of the first things that stands out to me when I look at a dog walking, or is the reach of the front. Is like if they have super nice reach and walking, like that just kind of catches my eyes. It's like, oh, that looks really nice. And there's Pierce, one of your dogs, has a super nice reach, and it seems like he's producing that. So I have a couple of his kids. One's not old enough yet to really be, he sired my litter. He's not. Feel like I see it in the puppies when they're playing around and walking around. They're getting to the point now where they'll actually walk normal rather than hopping all over the place. And I feel
Right.
like I can see that really nice walking in
So
the front. But I tend to just like look at the legs, like you were saying. That tends to be how I look at it, and I look at their walking, and it's like, or I'll look at their head and their neck and how they hold it up, which I guess would probably, what's the underlying cause of that? Probably their chest, right?
so all right, that's a very good point.
Hey, everybody. Sorry for the interruption, but I just need to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast network, wherever you're listening to this right now. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit a thumbs up button. Make sure you show us that you like this content, that we're doing good. Help us grow. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Now back to the show.
The front end makes the shape of the dog when it's moving. So when you see a dog moving with its head down, bad front. If you see a dog moving with its head kind of out, that's a front problem. Because when you start, I'm holding up a copy of our Breed Illustrated Standard, and when you look at the correct reach, how it's extending out before in front of the nose, and it's making the triangle, that the angulation going up the front leg through the shoulder for the full reach of the upper arm, and then the matching extension in the rear, which makes that shape that we sometimes see. I mean, there are breeds that have a different upper arm that make for a different gait, like say a miniature pinscher. They'll have a really exact, they'll have a high stepping hackney gait, which is a breed specific to that breed. And like they'll even like Havanese, they'll have their jaunty gait. That's because they have a little different upper arm construction. But on our breed and like a lot of the spaniel breeds and a lot of stuff, we want the elbows to go back into the rib. We want the point of shoulder. When you draw a line going down from the point of shoulder, it should end up going all the way down through the front leg and then having your 45-degree angle there. But the thing is, with that front end, not only does it decide how many steps they're going to take to get point A to point B, but it's going to also dictate the shape of the dog while it's doing that. So have you ever seen when you're out there cutting cookies in the snow with your car in the parking lot, and that's like you tap your front brakes and your back end swings on around. When you see a dog walking and there's more drive in the rear than there is reach in the front, they'll start to like they're losing control on the snow, and they'll fishtail and they'll start to go, and the rear will come out, and they call it sidewinding. Super common fault. Super, super common fault. It is largely, sometimes people say, oh, it's just behavior, this or that, blah, blah, blah. Like, well, then train your dog because it looks like its front's messed up. And when you see people switching them to put them in one side or the other to try to keep them from crossing over, that's a handler's trick to try to cover up the sidewinding. Usually when you see sidewinding, oftentimes there's a front fault. There's a reason that the dog's not able to has more push behind than has reach in the front, and so it's going to overdrive. It's going to lose its top line, and it's going to start to go sideways. So that front end is going to go ahead and dictate how the timing is. I believe the front is more important than the rear because the rears are fairly easy, and there's you can have bigger degrees of rear angulation and push and all that. But if the front is good, you've got a good side gait, and that's a lot of what dog shows is about, is the side gait, because we take them around, do the one down and back, but then it's back to going around and around and around, and and that's largely going to be on your front end stuff.
I feel like talking about front ends, I feel like it's kind of like a semi where you have this vehicle or this thing, but the front just controls everything. And it's just like, if you have good front movement, the rear is just going to follow along like it's supposed to be, like with a semi truck, right?
Exactly.
Is there a case where maybe you have, like, just saying Japanese chin, we want that straight back. If we're really high in the rear, like, does that maybe throw and make a front look bad because they're high in the rear, so they're maybe a little bit faster movement with the longer or bigger strides with longer legs in the rear because is that a possibility, or is it more just like they don't have the drive in the front, so their rear is just kind of doing its own thing? Because you'll see it sometimes where they're almost like going down and back, like halfway sideways.
It's the front. It's a front wheel drive vehicle. And that's and so when you're feeling them when you're looking at them, like and like with toy dog evaluations, we do a lot of just sitting back and kind of watch them. It's a lot of a visual stuff, but like on a lot of the breeds, you're going to want to feel the point of the shoulders, and you're going to want to feel the forechest, and you're going to want to feel if those elbows are tight into the ribs. If the elbows aren't tight into the ribs, that's when you get the swinging of the front legs. And they get that mix master look, like a big old egg beater coming at you. And you look at
which
them
is
and
ugly as hell to see. And I'm actually, and I'm just gonna put this as Japanese chin. I'm surprised how many judges will still put up a dog like that. Like I've seen so many dogs that walk like that get put up and have their champion titles. I've finished one myself that walks like that. Like I'm surprised.
So the last thing you do in the ring generally is what you pick on. So if you're just moving them around in a circle, that doesn't look as offensive as it does when it's just coming right back at you and they're like going one leg over here, one leg over there. So, you can hide it a little bit, and you can kind of cover it up. Like if you mess up your pattern and go slow, or try to keep them. Oftentimes when you see like a dog that takes like 2 or 3 steps, or they have to move it real slow before they can get them collected and into a gait, that's a front that you're trying to get it in sync, because if it has a good front, it doesn't matter what speed it's at. It doesn't matter. You don't have to run it. You can walk. They just always stop. And so one of my friends who judges, he kind of made me on this, and he said, your eyes light up whenever they stop and do 1, 2, and they line up in front of you. And I said, well, I do love that. I like a dog that walks into a good front, because a dog that walks into a good front has a good front. But when they stop and they're too far apart, or they're not in sync, it's kind of like they have a bent frame on a bicycle. Like they're just it's not quite in sync with that. So if they can walk into that, that's kind of huge. Another thing that a component to the front end is when you see a dog that doesn't have like enough leg, and maybe they're a little overdeveloped in the front. Well, the shoulder blades have a lot of space in between them. And that's called being loaded in the shoulder. And so a lot of times those dogs are kind of loaded in the shoulder, and then they're just kind of front heavy. They don't take a big step. They take a smaller step, a more restricted reach, and they not going to carry themselves with as pretty a carriage. And so that's where you want that to be a tight fit through there. You want the elbows tight. You want the shoulders, don't want a lot of space in between them. And you want to feel that front where it's underneath tight, and you got the line going from the point of shoulder down to the leg. And that is a really good, efficient front. Every good dog starts with a good front. That's the first thing you feel and see. It's what you watch and see. Now, genetically speaking, we have found, and one of our longtime mentors who had Weimaraners actually pointed out, said, good fronts are hereditary. And I believe that is possibly true. As long as one of your parents has good fronts, has a good front end construction, at least some of your puppies will have it as well. But a lot of times we'll see, people like the fronts are bad, and you go look at, well, both parents had a bad front too. And you see a lot of times on the breeds where they'll have like the front legs are just stuck on the front of them, and they don't go back up underneath. Even if it's a perfectly legit stack and that makes the shape, the simple fact that it's not elbows into the rib with forechest, what the movement's going to be like. You're going to have the swinging.
And does that go? We tend to talk about Japanese chin a lot, but does that go to a lot of breeds where they're supposed to be shoulder down through the front leg?
A lot of breeds. A lot of breeds are going to have that 45-degree shoulder, 45-degree shoulder with the, elbows into the ribs, into that full rib cage. That is such, they might even have, you can have a good front and a bad feet. That's possible. You can have, good front, and you can have not so great of pasterns. They can be kind of ugly down and a little twisty, turny and stuff like that. And people say, oh, it has a bad front. It has bad pasterns and bad feet, but the front might be just fine. The upper arm, the scapula, the point there, the elbows into the ribs, that might be good. And those are dogs that, it's a fault, of course, but those are dogs that when they go around it looks pretty, because they have a good front reach and a good extension and keep their little shape. But when you don't have that, then it's really hard to get that. And I see a lot of that Facebook, people get dogs out there, and when they have to run them overly fast to get them to have some semblance of a gait, that's oftentimes we're hiding something there too. We have to get fast enough we can kind of like buck into, it's like you're in the Millennium Falcon and they have to get this fast to go into warp speed. But if you can't keep your shape at any speed, then you probably have a structural issue that we're covering up.
So is it the same, we're talking about egg beater front legs. What about legs that are crossing over? Is it the same scenario or is that a completely different
Abs-
thing?
Absolutely. It's a similar thing when the crossing over is usually to do with a incomplete rib cage. Which I mean, that rib cage on the dogs, which like on coated breeds where you have to touch them to kind of feel to see if it's there, or our breed, Chin, you can cover up a lot with hair. You get big, pretty full coat with their on their stuff, and it's like they can look like they have a chest, they can look like they have all these pieces and parts, and when you put your hand on them, there's like no rib cage. And that rib cage is so important. And I mean, it's something that it's going to make or break the whole dog, because if it has the rib cage, it's also great for the breeding aspect of it if it's a bitch. But you've got a good shot of it having a shorter loin, because when you have an incomplete rib cage, then you're going to get more of your length of your dog in loin instead of rib. If you don't have the full rib cage, you're not going to have your elbows in there. And then that's when you're going to get that play in there. It's kind of like your U joints are going out on your car, and you've just got more play in there because there's nothing in there holding them in. Those are just all things that you see, that when you watch other, and oftentimes when you're watching your puppies, watch which one of them, when you hold a cookie down and they walk up and they walk right into it, and their little legs are straight down in front and their little chest is puffed over there. That dog's got a good front. And almost every time, if it has a good front, it's probably got a good rib cage too. You know, it's gonna have nicer shoulder placement. It's all kind of funny how these qualities all kind of interlock. You're gonna have, if you have this piece, you probably are gonna have that piece. And it also works with the faults. If they don't have enough front, they probably don't have a very good set of ribs on them, which means they probably has a little bit more length of loin, and it all kind of fits together. You know,
But that's
it's
what makes breeding such a I mean that's what makes breeding such an art, because it's like if you could just put two dogs together and all of a sudden you're going to get this big thing, this best in show winning dog. It's like that's why you're looking at pedigrees and you're looking at the dogs in front of you and you're like, well, this dog has a really nice front. This dog that I want to breed it to, another nice front. Great. We should probably produce good fronts, but what about the faults that they have? And that's where it's like this big mix of what you're gonna get out of a breeding, and I mean, that's the game of breeding right there, is figuring out how to take how to overpower some faults, how to reproduce the qualities, and then maybe you go too far and now you gotta fix something or try to bring something back that if you're really working on fronts and you start messing up rears a little bit, or, something else that you gotta try to then bring back, and it's like that's what makes it the breeding aspect, the art part of it, and like when you have the eye for it and the knowledge to look at the dogs you're breeding, you're not just throwing two dogs together because it's like, well, that's a male, that's a female, freedom,
well,
you know.
if you can't see the faults, if you're not honest with yourself to see the faults, because I hear all the time, he is as either an exhibitor or as a judge, and people say, well, he's a real good mover. I'm like, it showed well. It behaved well, uh, which is a very appreciated quality. Someone worked with it, which I mean, kudos for that. But just because it showed well doesn't mean it moved well. And that's kind of like, because someone will say, well, that dog didn't behave very well and it won. Well, it might have just been a better dog, not as well behaved, but there were glimmers of a really good shape that, the judge saw, that what, not inconsistent behavior. Like I was watching one of my dogs that was being a little butthead this weekend, and he got it together enough to win, but I was like, oh, proud moments. And he's only had the 2,000 driveway hours, but we changed the circumstance. That's really You have to see those glimmers of when it falls in place and they move so pretty and sweet. People have to sometimes they don't see that. They're like, "Oh, well, my dog showed well." Well, it did show well, but it moved poorly. And it's kind of like it's almost frustrating to see when someone says that to you. "Well, he's a good mover." Like, well, no, not really. And, I suppose it's probably rude to offer to move it for them so they could see it, but if they're not seeing it, they're not seeing it. The timing, the footfall, how they stop, how they carry themselves, the top line, all of that hinges on having that good front end.
Now, how much of the front end, how much of it is just built and never repairable, and how much of it is like we can get out and we can walk on a pace? We can train, we can figure out a pace, and I mean, is any of it trainable, or is it like they have it or they don't, and then
Sure.
you're just working to figure out what hides it the best? What
Right. So
'Cause, I
when
mean,
you
you see
have
people put dogs on treadmills and stuff like that, and they do it beyond they do it beyond just exercising them, they do it to, "Let's figure out their pace." Well, are they actually fixing anything doing that, or are we just figuring out what pace hides everything?
well, I mean, so dogs that are really built right, you know, and then, that's when you go in there and you say, well, someone will say, well, that dog didn't have the most coat, or that one did this, or that one isn't as pretty marked, or that, you know, but the superior construction just is what it is. But yeah, you can do a lot of things to compensate, and you can get something like you can get a dog that shows really well, and you can get a dog in really good condition. You can do things to kind of teach it to hide its fault. Maybe you can teach it to bait and do a little spin back in, kind of take a second shot at getting the leg somewhere in the same zip code. You can do things to kind of or practice which speeds the dog moves the best at. But, there are things you can do to accentuate your positives. But as a breeder, you're just cheating on your diet. I mean, you can put a frosting on a turd all day long, but it still doesn't make it a brownie. And, so, I mean, show, fine. But as a breeder, be honest with yourself. Say, this dog doesn't carry itself well. What is wrong with the front that is not giving us the head carriage that we want to see? You know, what is wrong with the shoulder placement? Is it straight in the shoulder? You know, is it lacking in rib? Is it loaded in the shoulder? Why? Go in there, because the movement is the acid test. The movement is what brings it all out there. And then you can see as to what is wrong. And then once you know what's wrong, then well, how can I breed around this? You know, how can I go ahead and identify the problem? I think that's a kind of a huge thing, is to be able to identify the problem and then be able to go ahead and say, what do I need to do to fix this? And because, you know, obviously that's why it's so important to go to nationals and to watch these dogs, watch these live. I love it when they do the live feeds at the shows, because you actually get to see them walk around a little bit. And even if it's embarrassing because they don't behave as well as they should, you can actually see them move, because the pictures are all lovely now. I mean, let's face it, you know, everybody's pictures are fab. And if they're not, it's just because you're lazy and you suck, because the pictures are a work of art. You can make them anything you want, and super easy, with any smartphone. But the movement is still has to be the movement. And, there's only so much you can do to hide that, or to deceive the eye. And that's because you start watching them gait around and stopping and moving on their own. That's something that I really like to see when I'm judging. Is if I have a couple of dogs, I'll get them out there, move them around, work them on their feet, and see how they stop and how they look when they're in there. Because and when I pick my puppies, same thing. I throw them out in the yard and watch them. You know, see who uses their legs right. And that's your show dog. That's your best dog.
That's one of the things that I find myself doing a lot with the puppies is, like, just watching them play, watching them interact, and watching how they when you're not baiting them, you're not talking to them, you're not doing anything, they're just in their natural state playing around. Like, how does one little puppy run around and then just stop and stand? Like, is he stopping in a nice little stack with his front end just kind of locked in, or is he standing like a deer on ice? You know how? And it's just like I could sit back and watch them for an hour and just observe how they're moving, and it's just like, wow, that's really nice. Not as nice over there. Oh, that's really nice. Like I like that, and you can kind of see, their length of loin and how they're moving around just by playing, and then they'll just catch you. They'll just stop and start looking at they'll just be standing there, and you're just like, oh, that looks so good, and then it's just like I don't know. As is like one of the aspects that I love about breeding that I'm finding is just watching the puppies and how they are carrying themselves and how they're built as they're growing. It's just like, wow, all right.
Yeah, and that's just it, because even like when you were talking about Piper, and the first thing you said was, "Wow, she really does carry herself. She really does move around and stop on herself well." And I mean, that's the kind of thing that, because it's like it caught your eye. So when we kind, there's an old saying that you know, you shop on the table, which means you look at things. We're going to look at features and stuff. We're going to look at qualities, and we're going to look at condition. You shop on the table, but you buy on the floor. And what that means is you put them on the ground and see what they do. Because, the table exam is fine if in theory, if they're put together right, they should move right. But honestly, if they move right, they're put together right. And when you go ahead and throw them on the ground and say, will they carry themselves? How does that shape look? How does that top line look? What's the fall of foot? The timing. That's where it should just be smooth and effortless, and just like how they're eating up that ring. And that's probably the biggest thing that you can kind of, when you go in there and sets a successful program, a successful breeder, a successful handler, is when they're going to get dogs that they can get consistent balance and movement. Because they can be pretty all day long. They can have this and this and this. Or you can groom them, you can grow hair on them, all of these things. But the people who are really successful, and they get the big wins, though they get the wins with all the toys, and they get the group wins and best in shows. Those dogs have that curb appeal of the balance of their movement, and that's what's going to separate out the good from the really good.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that I'm still learning. I'm still learning movement because there's things where it's like I can be on the lead and feel like what I'm seeing down next to me is either really good or really bad. But if I'm recording it and I go back and watch it, then it's just like, ooh, I didn't see that. Like I didn't see that from my point of view, and I mean, it just goes back to like you really got to record yourself and look at it from a judge's point of view of the dog going around because when you're looking down from above at the end of the lead,
Yeah,
you see something
no,
completely different. You can't see the angulation of their front. Might look like they're reaching, but are
right.
they? It might look like, you know,
Are you getting this where they have the reach in the front and the extension in the rear? It makes the balance. Are you getting that full extension? You can't really see that. And I think sometimes, even when we see things that people, when they're showing dogs and they're wanting to either run them fast or have the dogs move way out in front of them or that kind of thing, and it's might be showy. And and that's, of course, it is showbiz, might catch eyes, but is it collected and together and showing the synchronicity? Because you got to keep that. That's the part that really draws people in, when that dog looks so effortless, and like it could just keep moving and keep doing that all day long.
and then there's a little bit of the like, I mean, I think like a lot of it is the eye catching aspect of it and knowing your breed standard is like, I feel like with Chin is like if you're gonna get a long coated chin that's holding its head up and looking like royalty as it's going around the ring, it's gonna catch the eye, and then it stops in a perfect stack. Gonna catch the eye a lot. Probably gonna do a lot of winning just based on like it looks elegant. It looks like it should look. And, so it's kind of where do you see that a lot in judges maybe that aren't super educated, or maybe do you just see it in general? Is just like the eye catching can actually dictate the ring more than the actual qualities?
Absolutely. 100%. Because when in doubt, that stands out. When you see a dog that has those qualities, that's going to, from 12 feet away, you go, oh, I may not be a scholar on that particular breed, but that sure is appealing. You can just kind of see it. I mean, the it's kind of like you can see when people are walking, and you go, well, how that person just really carries themselves and they have posture and all that. I mean, you people just notice that. It's like, oh, look at them, that type of thing. And so that, I mean, that's really, that's something that is, it's a culmination of structure, temperament, and just overall makes the carriage in the picture. But in every single breed where they talk about that, they preface it with like, the cavalier's tail's always in motion. Well, it's because it's wagging its tail, its head's up. That's part of the charm, all of that type of thing, and it's by and large, I know as an exhibitor and a breeder, I like, I want to see the judges evaluate them on how they're put together and how they're going around. That's more impressive than to me than a dog that will stand and stare at a piece of bait for 15, 20 minutes without moving a muscle. I mean, that's nice, but it doesn't really tell you much other than it's hungry.
Yeah, and see, like, I feel like sometimes there's that in the show ring or in the mentality of dog showing is like, well, my dog behaved the best, so I should win. And it's just
Hmm.
like, well, is this a training competition or is this a structure competition? Like, what are we judging here? Are we judging breed quality, closeness to standard, or are we judging whose dog listened the best, like, and
Sure.
I can even fall into that sometimes too, is just like, well, that dog didn't even walk very well and they still won and it pisses me off. And it's like, well, maybe that dog was just better, closer to the
Yeah.
breed standard than my dog that walked,
Yeah.
maybe.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you gotta take a lot of that with a little bit of a grain of salt too. But so is it safe to say like the front end really can dictate the rest of the dog? Like, is that the most important piece? Is like we want a super solid front end and everything else generally will follow. I'm sure you can have a shitty rear end and a good front end, but
Yeah, but it's still probably a pretty decent dog with a really good. If the front end is really good, it might be a little bit crappy in the rear. But I mean, it's still, you can work around that a little bit, and the rear is probably something that it can be, with a little bit of exercise, and you could probably build up on that to a certain degree. You know, that is something that can come and go a little bit more. But there's not much you can do to make the front better. It is what it is.
so if you have a
And
good
so,
front end, you can hide other faults in the dogs with a solid front
oh,
end.
for sure,
But if you
for
have a
sure,
bad front end, you can't take other qualities and hide that bad front end.
you're just so screwed.
Yeah, you're just
Yeah,
fucked.
yeah, yeah. No, there's no going. There's just really not any way you can. You're not going to have a good top line. You're not going to have an impressive go around. You're just not going to have. No, it's not there. So that's, every good dog starts with a good front. And so once you know what a good front looks like in your dog and what components in your breed that need to have that, you know, then you can add to that and build your show dog from there. But it's a really good starting point, and if you have that, pretty much everything else you can really fall in place if it is truly good.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Anything else you want to add on front ends? I feel like we're
We're at the
the
back end
horse.
of the front ends.
Yeah, I think we're at the back end of the front end. The horse is laying down, and we're beating it.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah, that's our thing.
the front end is important.
Yeah, learn what it's supposed to be looking like,
I
and
think
look at
I
you.
kind of like an analogy that I like to have is like it's like a teenager buying a car. Like when we were just talking about judging, and they're like, if they don't know the breed standards super well, or they're not, really versed, it's like they're going off of what catches their eye. It's like a
Ex
teenager buying a car. They might not know they're just buying what looks good to them. They could care less about,
a good wax
safety
job.
ratings or,
Yeah,
anything like that. It's just like what looks cool. What catches my eye? What do I like? That's what I'm buying.
a fin on the back, a fin and a really good paint job
That was cool when
will
Fast and the Furious 1 was out, and now we're on, like, Fast and the
exactly.
Furious 20, and I don't even know, what's cool anymore.
Yeah.
That I did see, like, a 1995 Chevy Malibu yesterday, and it was driving, and they no, the kid put a fin on the back of it, and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, wow. Wow, you're cool."
Yeah. We're cool. We're cool. Knock
Yeah,
a hole in
so
the muffler.
yeah, so, like, a couple, just, like, I guess, house cleaning items. The AKC officially dropped the limited registration showing piece that was completely dropped out. So that's not even on
Oh
the
yeah.
table anymore. So everybody that, is like the world is ending and all the
It
things is
didn't
like,
end.
no,
Nope.
it got
Nope.
dropped. And I think we need to realize like the way that businesses and programs get better is people bring ideas to the table and then we talk about them
Exactly.
and we get feedback. And that's what happened in this
Absolutely.
scenario. Somebody brought something to the table saying, "This might improve our business model." And then everybody
Maybe
collectively
we could
said,
do that.
"No, it doesn't. So we're
No.
not going to do that." But that's how good things happen is when people put their minds together, you throw everything on the table and you filter out the shit. And that's kind of what happened in this scenario.
And you
But
got to talk about it. Talk
but
about
everybody
these
loses their
options.
fucking mind. It's just like, "Oh my
Well, they
gosh."
do. They do. They gets out there and they just kind of like think it's kind of like a little bit where we get it's too big to fail, and we all think that AKC is like Oz, and we're going to go there, and it's like smoke's going to be coming out of the tower and all that. And it's just a bunch of people, who trying to do the right thing, and they got a goal, and maybe they've got more experience in one thing than another. But that it is a think tank, and it is I don't think that we probably need quite as much hostility.
I mean, they're a business with a CEO that's trying to figure out how to make
Right.
shareholders happy and increase revenues. And just like everything else in the world, like their expenses are going up too. So they need to figure out how to bring in more income. So then you start tossing ideas around, and that's just how a business model works. So to think that they're any different than any other business is insane. But
It is, and it's got to grow, and it's got to grow to keep up with expenses. And I think that's part of like when we're talking about the raising prices on entry fees and all that. Well, expenses keep going up. Expenses are going up and up and up. And so what can we do to bring those down? And sadly, registrations aren't going up because we're really not we're not pushing people, encouraging people, supporting people to breed. Unlike the Tackbox, where we think everybody should have a litter, we think that's cool. Do that. Uh, and when you get done with that one, have another one. But when we don't encourage breeding, then we're going to have it's going to start we're going less less interest, less money to spend. It just filters down. It just makes and things get more expensive.
yeah. So I'll ask you this question because I feel like you just opened the door for it, and it kind of made it pop up. But there's obviously there's groups on Facebook, but there's a question I saw in a breeding group, and it was a question along the lines of somebody was just asking like, Christmas whelping and things like that. Like, if your bitch comes in a season and would be having puppies right around Christmas, would you skip the cycle so you didn't have to have puppies around Christmas time? And my mindset went to like I'm not skipping at whelping just because Christmas is here. Is like I'm gonna have the litter of puppies because that's my responsibility as a breeder is to like I'm not wasting a cycle on this bitch but I'm not nearly as family oriented as some people where it's like they have family coming over and that's all that thing first. Like for me it's just like my dogs are first. If it's a breeding I want, I'm gonna freaking breed it and I'm gonna whelp it if it's Christmas Day. I don't care. But I can also see the aspect of if you're a C-section breed, then you got to have a vet on, that, are you going to want to pay a C-section on Christmas Day to a vet that you're going to pay 5
Have
times?
many, have many
Yeah.
times. Yeah.
So I mean, you probably just answered the question there, but what are your thoughts on that? Like, you're not skipping
Well,
a
I,
breeding
I
because
think,
Christmas is coming, right?
I think that, I think that, we shouldn't just get cornholed into saying, well, this is right and this is wrong. Everybody's circumstances is different. So if you have time over the holidays, you have time to mess with puppies, that's a great, I mean, if you've got a couple of weeks off to get a puppy settled in, then yes, get a puppy. That's awesome because you have time. Everyone's home. Everyone's sick of looking at each other. We can take turns with the puppy. We can take care of the puppy and not be working on each other. Then that's a good thing. If you're going to be gone, then that's not a time to either have a litter or buy a puppy. I mean, just kind of have a little common sense. I mean, but if you have the time, I think it's awesome. I love it. I mean, it's like we always stayed home through Christmas, because we had animals to take care of. So it was like cool. We've got more time to do it. And people that are wanting to bring in a puppy, I thought someone say, well, puppies is not for Christmas. It's like, well, a puppy's not an impulse gift. A puppy isn't an impulse in March. It does. A puppy's never an impulse. So I mean, if you have more time to bring one in December, then get it in December. If you don't have time until the spring, then wait and get it in spring. Pull your head out. Have a thought. Don't just like follow along and be a bumper sticker for the sheeple. You know, you find out what works for you. And if you have time to have puppies over the holidays, well, by all means, then that's a good thing. And like we were saying before, you can schedule stuff. I mean, because using progesterone, you're going to know when they ovulated, when they're due, and you can make your arrangements, and you've got 2 months to plan it out. It's not like it's going to surprise you. I mean, you've got time. So if you're going to do something, you want to do a breeding that might close to the holidays, then you got to start talking to the vet and say, when are you going to be in? When can we this? When can such and such? And, I think that the vets are game to work with you if you give them, if you include them in the plan. You just can't call them, 11:30 at night and go, well, you should be in labor now for 5 hours. And I think I need a section. Well, it's like, wow, you're just a myriad of bad choices. And your
Yeah,
problems are
that
now
that
my
vet could
problems.
already be like 5 glasses of eggnog in, and
Yeah, I I've even had I've had one time a vet say that to me. He says, "Well, someone's gonna have to come pick me up because I'm not good to drive." I'm like, "Oh, are you good for the section?" I mean,
I mean, maybe.
yeah, it's like,
I think
oh,
that just like I think you kind of summed it up as like don't follow the sheeple, and like I hate to be that person, but it's like there's not one right or wrong way. It's what's
no,
right or wrong for you in your situation. If you're
there you go.
if you're like me and like you're home, like you know what, holiday whelping in my family 100% better than any other time of the year because everybody's home.
Awesome.
Like my wife is
Everybody's
a
home.
teacher, she's on vacation, she can help, and the kids are out of school, so they can help. I have more hands on deck to help than if I have a whelping during the week when everybody's at school. So for me, it's like summer, Christmas, whelp away.
Yeah,
But you really have to analyze your scenario and what's best for you in that situation. If having family over and all that stuff is more
or
important than
leaving,
having a litter,
or
or
leaving,
leaving or going
or
somewhere is
leaving.
more
Yeah,
important than having a litter of puppies, then that's not wrong.
it's not wrong.
That's your choice. Like,
Just do it. Pick.
sometimes it's
Just
funny
got.
just to see some of these questions and then see people's answers, and it's just like, well, you have to do this or you can't do this, and it's like, well, you can do whatever you want that works for your life and your scenario.
That's the kicker. I think that's the kicker, and that's where we shouldn't get pushed into, one size fits all because everyone's situation is different. Everyone's capabilities are different. Everybody has their own agenda. And when I see the online experts saying, well, this is the only way it's right. I'm thinking to myself, I don't even like you. You are not
That's
the boss
funny
of
though.
me.
That's the only way it's right because I did it different and it worked.
Hmm.
It's just but on a side note, just to end off the podcast, we've gone down a ton of different windows here, but that's
I
fine.
know.
But so somebody messaged or made a comment on one of our Tackbox posts, and they had just found our podcast on a way to a dog show. This happened a couple times now, and so they binge listened to us, and they felt compelled to comment that they found us. They're binge listening to us. They love us, and so just a shout out to that person. You know who you are. If you're, yeah, I'm sure you're binge listening to this episode, which I hope you are. But we appreciate you, and it's
That's
awesome to
so
get feedback
cool.
like that. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
super
so
awesome to
cool.
get feedback like that. They're like, "You're better than the pure dog talk show." No, I'm just I'm like, "I'll take it. I'll take it." Okay, yeah, yeah, we'll
Yeah,
take that.
hey, I mean, that's right. You can hold up People magazine saying, "Oh boy, you're way hotter than they are." I was like, "Sure, I'll take that. Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem." Yeah,
I'll take
it
it.
might. Thanks, mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I promise we didn't pay this person. I've never spoke to this person before.
Yeah, but we've gotten some really great feedback, and it's very appreciated. And like what a really good longtime friend and client, Ruthie McGee, he was messaging about the front end construction because she's an old cocker person and now breeds some really beautiful boxers. And so I said, yeah, that's fun. We can talk about that. So all of that input and stuff, I think that makes us better and more interesting.
Well, and that's the thing. When you guys want us to talk about something, let us know because we'll try to make an episode about it, or at least a half an episode about it. And just because if you leave it up to us to decide, we're going to be talking about
Who knows
who
what?
knows what, running,
It could be anything.
snow, wind,
It could be anything.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
mean,
we might
there's
talk about different shapes and colors of poops, like, and what they mean. You never know with us. So
you want to
your
get a big
feedback,
social media, you want to get a big social media response on something, put something involving poop on your social media, just like bam, explodes. People love talking about it. But I
people
mean,
love
it does
talking shit, like
they do,
literally all
literally.
sorts of it.
Uh, What that looks great. What are you feeding?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good solid poop. That must be a raw poop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they
Yeah.
had puppy food,
There you go.
I gave him some of my chicken last night from dinner. All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Tackbox Podcast. You never know what you're going to get with us. We might just end with a shit talk.
It's like,
It
yeah,
is what
you
it is.
never know. Talking shit. There you go.
Yeah.
All right,
So,
everyone.
yeah.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you guys all next week.